Let's take it back to March 31st, 1985, where the vibe inside Madison Square Garden is absolutely electric, as 19,000 screaming fans realize they are watching history happen. It is the very first WrestleMania beaming into over 1 million living rooms through closed-circuit TV, marking the exact moment professional wrestling kicked down the door and forced its way into pop culture. Standing tall in the middle of this madness is a 6'7" titan with bleach blonde hair popping his massive 24-inch biceps while the stadium shakes. Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Showman, had officially arrived as the industry's first worldwide icon. It took 5 long years of grinding to reach this peak, transforming a guy named Terry Bollea from a local attraction into the face of the sport for an entire generation. For the next decade, Hogan was the main attraction, top billing 8 out of the first 9 mega events. That red and yellow gear didn't just mean wrestling, it stood for American pride and every kid's wildest dreams. He got bigger than the ring, showing up in Hollywood blockbusters, sitcoms, and plastered on every magazine rack in the country, taking a gritty regional sideshow and polishing it up for families across the suburbs to enjoy over dinner. But while Hogan soaks up the love hitting those poses and leaning in to hear the cheers, there is a shady reality hiding behind the glitz. Make sure to hit that like button if you want to see more deep dives into wrestling's hidden history. See every single move, every famous line, and every quirk that made the Hulk Hogan character famous was actually lifted straight from someone else's playbook. The bodybuilding look, the attitude, and even calling people brother, the stuff everyone thinks makes him unique. It all originally belonged to a forgotten legend whose own career was scrapped so Hogan could build his kingdom. In this business, they talk about paying your dues, but it looks like someone else cashed the check. Rewind 7 years before Hulkamania ran wild. The wrestling world was a totally different beast, split up into local territories where everyone had their own small-time kings and drama. The Worldwide Wrestling Federation, run by Vince McMahon Senior, was the big dog in the Northeast, owning the prestigious Madison Square Garden market. Back then, the good guys were strictly old school. You had legends like Bruno Sammartino, a hero to the working class, or Bob Backlund, the clean-shaven all-American athlete who played by the rules. Then Wayne Coleman crashed the party. Or, as you might know him, superstar Billy Graham, the man who flipped the script forever. Graham wasn't just innovative, he looked like an alien compared to the guys he was fighting. While everyone else was rocking that soft beer-belly strongman look from the 50s, Graham looked like a Greek statue come to life, standing 6'4" and packing 275 pounds of pure shredded muscle. He built that frame-pumping iron next to Arnold Schwarzenegger at the legendary Gold's Gym in Venice Beach. When people saw him, jaws dropped. Graham completely changed the standard for what a wrestler was supposed to look like, turning the ring from a place for grappling into a stage for physical perfection. And he wasn't just for show. He learned the ropes in the infamous dungeon with Stu Hart up in Calgary, mixing legit mat skills with that bodybuilder glam to create a hybrid style that future stars would copy for decades. But Graham's influence went way deeper than just having big biceps. While the old guard gave boring, polite interviews, Graham jumped through the TV screen with raw electric energy. He talked like a street preacher on fire, mesmerizing anyone who listened, dropping lines so catchy they became part of the permanent wrestling dictionary. Graham was the guy who started using the word brother not as casual slang, but because he was actually religious and meant it spiritually. He was also the first one to brag about his 24-inch python, setting the benchmark for every flex that followed. His showmanship was totally unheard of at the time. He would storm into the ring, rip his shirt to shreds to show off the goods, and hit a double bicep pose that drove people wild. And right when the noise hit its peak, Graham would cup his hand behind his ear, practically demanding the fans to scream louder. These weren't just moves. This was performance art, blurring the line between a sport and a full-blown rock concert. What makes this crazy is that Graham did all of this first. He was doing all of this while playing the bad guy, what insiders call the heel. Back then, the rules were simple: cheer the hero, hate the villain. But Graham, he broke the mold. People were obsessed with his charisma even when he was supposed to be the one they despised. You just didn't see that kind of fan reaction in the wrestling world of the 1970s. The whole business relied on clear lines between good and evil to keep butts in seats. Holding the big gold belt from 1977 into '78 gave Graham a shot to do something totally unheard of. He started cooking up a master plan, flipping the script from bad guy to good guy without ever dropping the title. It was a game-changing idea. Usually you lose the belt to reset your character, but Graham wanted to ride the wave of organic fan love while staying on top. If he pulled it off, he would have been the sport's first real anti-hero champion. Imagine a champ with swagger and grit who was still the good guy. Please hit the like button if you think Vince McMahon Senior should have listened to him. The numbers didn't lie. Graham was selling tickets everywhere, and other wrestlers were already copying his style. But McMahon Senior was old school. He stuck to the playbook he knew. He wanted his champs squeaky clean, pure American heroes. Guys like Bruno Sammartino, who connected with the working class, or Bob Backlund, who looked like a legitimate athlete. So on February 20th, 1978, the curtain came down on Graham's reign. He lost the belt to Backlund, a moment that would stick with him forever. And it wasn't just about business. This cut deep. Graham saw that face turn as his golden ticket to becoming a massive mainstream star. He believed his look and charisma were about to make him a household name across the entire country. He poured his soul into that persona. His physique, his mind, his beliefs, all of it wasted just because he didn't fit the old mold. That heartbreak sent him spiraling out of control. He quit the company and spent 1979 and 1980 lost in a haze of substance abuse that destroyed him inside and out. And right when Graham was at his absolute lowest point, a rookie named Terry Bollea started rising up in the exact same company that turned Graham down. Bollea, who you probably know as Hulk Hogan, had been grinding in other territories for years. But when he got to the big leagues, things started to change. With McMahon Senior calling the shots, Hogan started using tricks that looked suspiciously like Graham's old act. It wasn't an accident, it was a total makeover. Suddenly, Hogan is rocking the bleached blonde hair just like the superstar. He pumped up his muscles to mimic that bodybuilder look, even if he wasn't quite as cut as Graham. But the real tell was the way he spoke. He started sounding exactly like him. That famous "brother" catchphrase. That was Graham's thing first, though Hogan turned it into a buddy-buddy term. Please comment below if you think Hogan borrowed a little too much from the superstar. Even crazier, Hogan's whole pre-match ritual was basically a carbon copy. Ripping the shirt, posing the biceps, cupping the ear, those were all Graham's moves that Hogan claimed as his own. He even stole the 24-inch Python's line, even though his arms weren't quite as sculpted as the original. But here's the kicker. It was all about how they were sold to the crowd. Graham was forced to be the bad guy while everyone loved him, but Hogan got to be the hero from the jump. That let Hogan take everything Graham created and package it as the good guy act McMahon Senior always wanted. By 1982, Billy Graham tried to get back in the ring. He returned to the company now run by Vince McMahon Jr. It was tragic to watch. All those years of hard living had turned a legend into a ghost of his former self. His massive muscles were gone, his confidence was shot, and they totally changed his character. The superstar was dead. Instead, we got a bald guy pretending to be a martial arts master. He looked nothing like the icon who changed the industry forever. To put it bluntly, the comeback was a total train wreck. Longtime supporters were absolutely floored by how rough he looked, while the younger crowd just saw a stranger without a clue about his legendary past. He spent 8 months trying to catch lightning in a bottle twice, but it wasn't happening, so he slipped out the back door without making a sound. That return run just proved a painful point. His entire vibe had already been hijacked and perfected by someone else. While the Hulkster was locking in his spot as the industry's king during the first WrestleMania, the originator decided to take one last swing at getting his mojo back. Over at Jim Crockett Promotions in the mid-1980s, he brought the superstar persona out of retirement, rocking a dyed goatee and mustache that gave him a seasoned, gritty look. Nobody really cared about that run, but it did serve up one last accessory on a silver platter for Hogan to swipe. That specific facial hairstyle became the signature look for his iconic Hollywood turn years later. The heartbreaking part of this saga really hits home when you look at the wreckage left behind after the robbery was complete. While Hogan was rocketing to the moon, banking millions and becoming a household name, Graham was stuck in a nosedive. His body started breaking down on him. Money dried up and the gloom set in heavy as he watched a carbon copy of himself living the dream that belonged to him. Things hit rock bottom during the federal steroid scandal targeting Vince McMahon Jr. back in the early 90s. Penniless and feeling invisible, Graham slapped a lawsuit on his old boss, alleging he was bullied into juicing during his ring days. That legal battle fell apart fast once proof surfaced that he had been on the gear for at least 10 years already. Since he was using way before he signed the contract, it looked less like justice and more like a last-ditch effort to squeeze cash out of the machine that chewed him up. That moment stands out as the darkest twisted turn in his biography, so please hit the like button if you think legends like him deserve way more respect. We are talking about the guy who literally rewrote the book on showmanship. He set the bar for physiques and promos for generations, yet there he was reduced to throwing shady legal jabs at the company that wouldn't give him his flowers. The powerhouse promotion that shot down his idea to become a hero ended up ruling the world. And they did it by taking that exact game plan and handing it to the guy who borrowed his entire act. Look, nobody is saying the Hulkster doesn't deserve his props. He grabbed the schematic, sprinted with it, and blew it up into a phenomenon way larger than the architect ever dreamed of. Every performer stands on giants' shoulders, and true originality is rare. Drawing inspiration is natural, and things evolve, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room. We have to admit that Hogan basically hijacked this man's existence, the groundbreaking persona, the poses, even the slang. He rode those stolen goods all the way to becoming the biggest icon the business has ever seen. The sting is even sharper knowing Hogan finally owned up to it, but only when it didn't matter anymore. After the superstar passed away in May 2023, Hogan finally confessed that the legend molded his career, admitting he just wanted to be that guy. Hearing that decades after building a kingdom on Graham's blueprints just feels empty. It doesn't mean much considering the originator spent his last days broke and in the shadows watching his own invention print money for someone else. Behind all the Hulkamania hype, a forgotten voice had been screaming into the void for 40 years. He was the one who made him brother.